Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Man Behind Ministry podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Smith of the Virgin Street Church. Great to have you with us tonight. You could be anywhere, but the fact that you kind of be with us tonight, man, is definitely an honor. And we pray that something we do tonight is going to bless you, help you get through whatever's going on in your life. You're going through a hard time. Maybe you're on the job right now, and maybe this next little session is going to get you through. So whatever it is, man, we're glad to have you with us. I have another dynamic and exciting guest here with us tonight. If you follow my ministry, I always reference a couple of things that have been impactful to me personally and me in the ministry. One being the Cedar Crest Church of Christ in Dallas, Texas. That's my family. That's my home away from home. I consider them my Texas family. We have a lock-tight relationship. And not just that congregation, but the minister serving and pastor to that congregation, Minister Jon Morrison. I'm here to tell you, I wouldn't be who I am today if it was not for this man and the leaders who work alongside him. I ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's go ahead and jump into it, y'all. How you doing, bro? How you doing?
Man, I'm good. Smith, how are you?
Man, I'm doing well, doing well. Definitely appreciate you taking time away from the schedule to
Yeah.
get to us, man. It's definitely a blessing.
Oh yeah. Listen, man. Like I told you before we started, usually things like this I pass on, but when you asked, I was happy to do it. You like to get me outside of my box and my comfort
Yeah,
zone. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm looking forward to our time tonight, man. But I appreciate you and what you're doing with this podcast. I know a lot of people are going to be blessed. A lot of families, ministers, and just people, period, by what you're doing here. So I appreciate you inviting me to come and be a part of what you're doing.
Definitely, definitely. So if you're tuning in, even now, live or on the replay, if you didn't catch that, you're getting something that nobody else gets.
That's
All
right.
right, so take so
Yes.
take advantage of this particular opportunity, man. You ready to get into it, man?
Let's get into it, man. Let's do it. Let's
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
yeah. So in the intro, man, I referenced the Crest, man, referenced Cedar Crest, man. That's my Texas home. That's home. That's family. Um,
Yeah.
at the Crest, and even those who are local to the Dallas area,
Mm,
we reference the Crest as the mother church in Dallas. Kind of
yeah.
tell us about that experience of just pastoring and leading a church with so much history in the heart of Dallas.
Yeah. Well, man, that's a good question, and that's interesting because when I came to Cedar Crest, I was in my 20s
Okay.
and late 20s, but 20s nonetheless. And that was kind of everybody's question, like, okay, how is this going to work? This young guy coming into an older, very historic church,
Hmm.
because man, you know as well as I do that the track record with
Yeah.
younger preachers and older churches
Right.
hasn't always been the
Hmm.
best.
Hmm.
There hasn't always been success there, and so that was the big question. I'll tell you, Smith. For me, I think when we talk about my experience here, really, I think it goes back to my upbringing and my childhood.
Okay.
My father he was an older minister, and in his
Hmm.
own right, kind of a pioneering type
Yeah. Yeah.
of minister. And so I grew up around older preachers.
Hmm.
I grew up around older members of the church.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that had to do with my being able to kind of fit into and appreciate the culture coming into an older congregation.
Gotcha.
I grew up really admiring and, I'll be honest, even almost idolizing some of my father's contemporaries, the
Okay.
G.P. Holtz,
Yeah.
the Jack Evanses, my father's mentor, J.S. Winston and R.N.
Hmm.
Hogan. And so, kind of growing up with that perspective, of ministry, of church, I think it really impacted my ability to be able to assimilate into a congregation like Cedar Crest.
Yeah.
You know, one of the big pieces of advice I got, as a young guy coming into an older church, is that it's much easier for one or two people, meaning the minister and his family, to do some assimilating than it is
Hmm.
for 300-400 people to
That's good wisdom.
assimilate to.
That's good wisdom.
Yeah, yeah, right. To one person. And so all of that, I think, really helped with me being able to come here, my family being able to come here and assimilate to the church. Honestly, I'll tell you, man, that's one of the probably the biggest pieces of advice I would give any guy that would ask coming into an older, more established church,
Hmm.
is that the assimilation has to be more so on your end than the church's end.
Right. Right.
If there's going to be an expectation of longevity and a successful transition. And so for us, I think it's been largely a pretty positive, a pretty pleasant experience.
Hmm.
Definitely we've had our challenges,
Yeah.
but largely I feel like the Lord has blessed our congregation to transition pretty well from one minister to the next. My predecessor, Cephas Alvin Northcutt Sr., he
Hmm.
had to say his whole name.
That's right. You
Uh,
got
uh,
big
he,
preacher.
he had to say his whole name, man, or
That's
he
right.
would he wouldn't answer you. He was in his late 70s, if I'm not mistaken,
Hmm.
when we started to transition. But again, what made it work was, of course, his spirit and his attitude and disposition. I'm thankful that he was not a minister who felt in felt threatened or intimidated,
Right.
right, by the next guy coming in.
Hmm.
Oftentimes, unfortunately, what we see is, older churches transitioning, and the minister that is transitioning out can really create some challenges for the guy coming in,
Hmm.
transitioning in. But we didn't have a lot of that, and that's one of the things I always have to give Brother Northcutt a lot of credit for.
Yeah.
Is he had the right spirit and disposition, and he gave me the space and the latitude to be the next man, to be
Yeah.
the next man up.
Yeah.
I think that had a lot to do with the experience, as well, coming into kind of an older
Hmm.
congregation. I think, me just embracing the culture of this church and its legacy.
Yeah.
Aside from Brother Northcutt, CC Locke was kind of like an iconic figure for this church. You know
Yeah. Yeah.
that. And so embracing that, recognizing that he still had influence in this church as well, to be very honest with you,
Hmm.
and embracing that culture and being a part of that, I think all of that contributed to us having a relatively successful, smooth experience with me coming into, this role of ministering and leading, what can be considered the mother church
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Dallas.
Yeah.
Um, and then and the other piece that's somewhat unique is, when you come into a church like this, you're not only tasked with being the leader of the local congregation,
Yeah.
but there's also, um, an unspoken kind of understanding
Hmm.
that you embrace your responsibility to be engaged in what's going on in the city,
That makes sense. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's a part of it too. When you come into a church, that's kind of like a mother
Hmm.
church
Okay.
type,
Yeah.
but again, thankfully, that didn't really create any challenges and issues. I think a lot of that had to do again with my upbringing,
Hmm.
and it was just a good fit for
Okay.
for our church.
Nice, man. Nice. Nice. You referenced earlier your father. You also referenced your family and how
Yeah,
good practice to assimilate. Um, your family four people, a household to an entire congregation. So let's talk about your family, man. You and I, we talk obviously privately. Um, we always talk about that constant juggling act of trying to balance the first ministry, which is your family, and then of course the congregation, and you mentioned the other obligations to the city, so on and so on.
Right.
Kind of tell us, man, how do you balance? That's a lot, man. How do you balance all that?
Well, let me lead with this full disclosure, right?
Okay.
That I can admit that I haven't always managed it well,
Okay.
and it's a constant. And I think a lot of preachers who have ministries that are multifaceted. You're on the road, when you're home, you got a lot of demands. You're being pulled here, you're being pulled there, in house and without. Again, being the minister of a church like Cedar Crest, which had a presence in the city, right?
Hmm.
There are some kind of assumed obligations and expectations that come with that. It can be pretty tough to try to juggle and manage all of that.
Hmm.
And like I said, especially in my earlier years, I flunked that test with flying colors. I can admit it was. I definitely did not have a balanced approach,
Yeah.
right? When it came to balancing family and ministry, and if I can just be honest with you, a lot of that had to do with. I may get in trouble for saying this, but
It's all right, man. It's all right. If we need to
yeah,
edit, hey.
well, hey man, listen, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of my predecessors, and I'll even say my own father, right?
Hmm.
That school of ministers that I grew up watching,
Hmm.
man, family was secondary,
Yeah.
in almost every aspect and phase to ministry.
It was really sacrifice for sure for the church. Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Hmm.
It was ministry first
Yeah.
at all costs, whatever it meant, whatever sacrifice it took. Ministry first, family second.
Yeah.
Family got in where it fit in after ministry obligations were,
Hmm.
fulfilled. That's just being perfectly honest. That was kind of like a lot of the examples that I got. A lot of my mentors, not all of them,
Hmm.
but many of my mentors, that was kind of their approach.
Yeah.
So, for me, there was that period where there was that imbalance.
Right.
But I can admit, with maturity, with age, and with the help of, I'll be honest, my wife, helped
Surely.
me understand. Listen, we got to
Get
find
those
a
points, man. You
better.
gotta get those points.
Yeah, yeah, we got to find that better balance. It's not working. It has helped me over the years to work harder to try to find that balance. And I think any minister, full time especially, will acknowledge that there's never a perfect balance.
Hmm.
There's never full time being a full time minister and a full time husband and father. Those are two full time jobs.
Yeah.
If you're investing in attention and energy in one, that's attention, energy, and time that's not being invested in the other, right?
Hmm.
That's just the reality of it, and so there's always that ebb and flow, that tug and pull. So you're always working to try to find that balance. So for me, I don't think it's any different than probably what anyone else is experiencing. It's just, that constant, trying to find some healthy balance.
Okay.
But like I said, I've gotten better over the years, and listen, when you understand, you know, when you realize how important it is to make that your children and your wife, your family a priority, that helps you find that
Definitely.
balance. But it is definitely it's definitely challenging, and it's something I think that every preacher has to, full time minister especially,
Yeah.
has to work through. What helped me, I'll share this with you, Smith. What helped me early on was some advice that Dr. James Maxwell gave me,
Okay.
actually, that I've carried with me just over the years. And I've tried to share it with the guys that have come through here. I think I may have shared it with you
Hmm.
and some of the others, you know, kind of trying to manage that tension and that stress. I asked Dr.
Yeah.
Maxwell, how do you do that? Because
Yeah.
those who don't know who Dr. Maxwell is, he was, uh, he was a preacher among preachers.
Indeed, indeed.
He was an itinerant preacher, traveled across the country, preaching and doing workshops, revivals, gospel meetings. He was vice president at Southwestern Christian College, so he had those demands on him,
Mm-hmm.
but was also a family man.
Yeah.
3 children, and so I asked him, man, Doc, how do you manage that? And he shared a principle with me. I'm not going to quote him directly, but he said basically something to the effect that you realize you can't spend all your time with family, but you do try to make the time that you do spend with them quality time.
Yeah.
You
That's
know,
good. That's good.
and that helped me. Now you do want to put the time in, and that's it's always a matter of trying to find that balance. But the key is making the time that you do spend with your family, making it quality time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making it memorable time, making those deposits with the time that you have.
Yeah.
And for me, I know that helped me a lot in
Now that's good wisdom.
especially early years. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good wisdom, man. Definitely whether you are if you're just a man, that's just good advice. Make sure you spend some quality time with your wife
Yeah.
and your kids. So I know it's definitely something like you said early on in marriage is something you had to learn.
Yeah.
So same here, same here. Let's talk about that. So you talked about family and spending that quality time. So when you're not preaching, when the camera's off, when you say that final prayer, when you're not on a Zoom Bible study, when you're not dealing with the city, what do you do to kind of relax? What are your hobbies? What are you into? Because most time we see the preacher, oh, he's on the news, he's behind
Yeah.
the sacred desk in the pulpit. What are your hobbies? What are you into?
Yeah. Smith, that's a boring answer, man. I'll be honest with you. Like for me, I'm a, you know, I'm a pretty low demand, low maintenance guy.
Okay.
I'm introverted by nature,
Okay.
so I'm the kind of person that if you leave me alone with my thoughts all day, I'm good. You
Yeah.
know, so to answer your question though, when the cameras are off and there's that alone time, that me time that everybody needs. I spend a lot of that time really just doing anything that is not related to ministry.
I like that.
Yeah, when kids are not in school and that kind of thing, wife's not at work, it might be family to
Mm-hmm.
family time. But if it's just me, it's just honestly being just in my own space, relaxing, watching TV,
Mm-hmm.
maybe doing some reading that's not related to anything that I'm
Yeah.
connected to
Mm-hmm.
ministry wise. I don't have a lot of hobbies. I
Mm-hmm.
would say that's probably something you're probably helping me right now.
There
Probably
you go.
need to find.
Hey, I'm trying to expand you some. I'm trying to expand you, man.
Trying to help me out, man. You trying to help me out. Good question. I see what you did there. I probably need a good hobby, but
Mm-hmm.
really for me, just having downtime to not have to do anything,
Right.
it's just really, I value that time, and I cherish that. So yeah, man, it's just relaxing, enjoying that me time, sometimes the peace and the quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I try to carve out time to spend with the kiddos. We may go here, we may go there. For the girls, it's daddy daughter time.
Mm-hmm.
For my son, it's guy time.
Yeah.
In fact, if I get permission from my wife, we may go watch a couple of the state championship games
Okay.
tomorrow. Oh no,
Nice.
Saturday.
Okay.
So we'll see about that. That's
Yeah.
some guy time.
We gonna pray on that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna pray on it. And, Justin and I, so things like that.
Okay. Nice. 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 One thing I've noticed, man. Of course, I've navigated away physically from the Crest, the top of 2015. But one thing I've noticed, of course, I still follow the Crest, still follow you because y'all family, right? One thing I've noticed, there's been sort of a shift in folks of your ministry. I've been following you on the socials, man, and you've gotten really more into social justice. You can go back to Trayvon Martin, and if people follow you, man, they see that you and a lot of others in the Dallas area have become very, very active with social justice, civil rights, things like that, man. What has caused that shift or that paradigm shift in your ministry?
I've been asked that question before, Smith. That's interesting, and I have to say again, I think it goes back to some of my earlier days in
Okay.
childhood and watching my father's example. For me, my first reaction to that is I really grew up um, believing and understanding that the civil social element, the
Hmm.
social involvement was a component of local ministry.
Yes.
My dad was always involved in what was going on with the school district, the county, NAACP.
Hmm.
Everywhere he went, he was connected to that. Even back in his time spent in LA with the Figueroa Church,
Hmm.
he'd march. He was involved in the civil rights, some of the civil rights
Yeah.
movement. He was on the forefront with race relations. He's got a book entitled that he penned and completed not long before he passed, entitled "The Shaping of a Brotherhood."
Hmm.
And in that, he kind of chronicles some of that and the
Nice.
race relations workshops that he hosted at the church that he ministered to,
Hmm.
at that point in Dayton, Ohio. And so, again, for me, civic engagement, social engagement was just an element of ministry.
Gotcha.
I always saw that. My father was always very actively involved in what was going on in the city. Baptist pastors and Methodist church leaders,
Hmm.
they looked to my father for leadership in a lot of
Yeah.
cases. And so to me, it was just a part of it. And so that element was already kind of embedded within me.
Yeah.
And, not that it matters that people would know this, but before both of them
Hmm.
was shot and killed, and before, we were kind of thrown into that, um, our church, the Cedar Crest Church, was already actively engaged socially.
Yeah.
We were doing some work around immigration reform. We were involved with some inequities surrounding the school district and our neighborhood high school,
Hmm.
on some matters dealing with homelessness. I mean, there were a
Yeah.
myriad
Yeah. Yeah.
of issues that we were already involved in, but obviously, both of them being tragically shot and killed, that
Took it up a notch.
catapulted
Hmm.
the local church into a different light
Yeah.
altogether.
Right.
And so, our church and some others that already kind of had that civil engagement piece in place. But I'm gonna tell you with just, and I'm speaking for myself,
Hmm.
with regard to what happened following both of them being killed. That obviously that happened unexpectedly. Nobody saw
Yeah.
that coming. And to be honest, although our churches were engaged in civic matters, there was not necessarily a lot of visibility,
Hmm.
right? You had
Yeah.
some other local pastors that historically were kind of on the forefront of some of those things. And naturally, when both of them were shot and killed, um, those were some of the voices that media and others who were wanting to get a reaction gravitated to.
Right.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I had a problem with the idea of um, leaders and voices from other fellowships
Yeah.
speaking louder
Mm.
than our voice
Yeah.
regarding justice for our brother.
Mm. Yeah. Yep.
That was a problem for me. I had a hard time processing that, and that was something that I just honestly I was not willing to just live with.
Definitely, that
And
makes sense.
so say that again.
I said that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I know that there were others within our fellowship that were like, "This is our brother. What are we gonna do?
There
What
we
are
go.
we gonna say?
Right. Right. It's our
Where's
family.
our voice in
Mm-hmm.
this?" Yeah, right. And so that really is what, again, speaking for myself, I'm not speaking for anyone else.
Right.
That's what made me say we have got to do something. We've got to organize. We've got to make sure that our voice is heard. We cannot let it be said that others have more to say about the injustice toward our brother than us.
Yeah,
You know.
not to make light of it sound like MJ with the Last Dance, and I took that personally. You know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
right. You know, I mean, aside from the fact that it's just the right thing to do,
Definitely. Yeah.
and the fact that we should have been doing it all along, let's just be fully transparent
There you
about
go.
that.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't be,
Yeah.
and so I think that motivated myself and others to say, okay, we've got to organize, we've got to create a strategy, and be visible and be actively involved and engaged in this process, because this is someone who belongs to our fellowship.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
That makes
I
perfect
will.
sense. Go ahead.
No, absolutely, man. And I will say this, not to belabor the point. Thankfully, I think that was a catalyst for us, particularly in Dallas, to recognize we've got to be more present, right? We've got to be more active and more vocal, more visible surrounding some of these justice issues. Like even today, as you and I are having this conversation, not to date the time,
Yeah.
but being actively engaged in what's going on with Aaron Dean.
Yeah.
That trial and the killing of our sister, Tatiana Jefferson, and we've done a lot of work subsequent to both of Jon being killed,
Right.
on the state level, on the county level, and even on the city level.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question. I may have
It
gone
did.
off on a tangent.
It did. It's all right.
It
It's all
did.
right. Hey, I'm a preacher. I know how it works, man. It's all right.
Yeah, 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 yeah. What was the question? Let's try it one more time. What was the question?
You hit on it, man. Just what encouraged this shift in your ministry with social, and you hit on it with both of them.
Yeah,
You kind of
that
took it
was it.
personally. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
That,
Yeah.
that, that was it. Yeah.
You definitely hit. You
Yeah.
definitely hit it.
Yeah.
Talking about that, just with social media and all that kind of stuff. We're, I wouldn't say in the middle of a pandemic, but we're kind of just in the midst of it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Pre-COVID, March 2020, very few churches really took media ministry and technology very, very seriously.
Yeah.
It's I think it's no secret now that church online, virtual worship, cyber sanctuary, whatever you want to call it, it's here to stay. It ain't going nowhere. And so, being the mother church, one of the oldest, how have you and the congregation managed just that new fixture, if you will, into ministry?
Yeah. Short answer: we fully embraced it.
Mm-hmm.
And before I say anything else, I gotta say, I am very thankful that the shepherds of our church, our elders,
Yeah.
immediately saw the importance, the value, and the need to fully embrace this new era that we were thrust into.
Right.
Like many churches, we were caught flat-footed. We had a little something kind of going on social media wise, but not really.
Right.
No real investment with regard to resources, no real organization with regard to ministry, surrounding it. But, when COVID hit, we realized that we had to pivot, and our leadership first, meaning myself and the shepherds here, there was a full embrace of it. And our congregation, by and large, fully embraced the transition as well.
Okay.
And so for us, social media, that element is a fixture. I mean, it's here. It's here to stay. And thankfully, we've made some pretty significant investments financially with regard to financial resources to
Yeah, yeah.
really improve the quality of the
Mm-hmm.
experience online, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When we started, it was just the iPhone on a
There you
tripod,
go.
and
Uh-huh. Hey,
that was,
baby stepping it. Hey, we were the same way.
yeah, that's where kind of where we started, but in pretty quick time, we made some pretty significant investments with regard to software,
Mm-hmm.
equipment, and I really got to give a shout out to our social media team.
Mm-hmm.
There were some young adults at our church in particular that really stepped up and took that thing to another level. And come to find out, we had members in our church that were extremely gifted in that area with regard to graphic design and just kind of putting that whole presentation
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
And so I would say at this point in 2022, the social media ministry is probably one of the core central ministries of our church.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of what we do now at this point flows through
Surely.
our social media.
Yeah,
There's not a lot that's going on around here that's not connected to it.
yeah.
So it's pretty woven into the fabric of our church. And again, I got to give our shepherds credit for that,
Mm-hmm.
the congregation, and our social media team. In my mind, they're top notch, and
Nice.
they've done a phenomenal job. And they've helped me along too, because I'm 43, Smith, and you don't say amen right now, but I'm an
I
old
wasn't
man.
gonna say anything.
By you don't say it. I know you're thinking it,
I wasn't
but
gonna say. I
you
wasn't
know,
gonna say nothing.
I'm an old man, right? In spirit, I really am.
Okay.
So they even help me as we try to embrace. I told you not to laugh. You're laughing, man.
Now you know I can't control that.
Yeah, but they even help me just kind of embrace some of the new concepts and new ideas. So to answer your question, we have fully embraced it, and I mean, social media is pretty deeply woven into the
Mm-hmm.
fabric of the ministry.
Gotcha.
Of the ministry
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Nice, nice. I want to ask you a personal question, man.
Yeah.
You and I, we labored together. I mean, even before our time at the Crest, you
Mhm.
were the dean of men at the Southwestern Christian College while I was a student there, and then from there, of course, I labored alongside you in ministry from 2010 to the top of 2015. One thing I noticed that's pretty peculiar about you, man. When I first got there, man, Wednesdays you were wearing suits and stuff on Wednesdays, man. But now I look at you, I'm looking on the camera, man. Your swag done elevated, man. Your style has increased, man. Is there somebody in your life that really just kind of helped you out? You know what I'm saying? Like who guided you? You know what I mean?
You snuck that one in. All right. I got it. Oh man, I think no. That's a fair question. And I would say, if anything, man, it's just, listen, times change, people evolve, and if I could be really transparent, perfectly transparent, again, I grew up watching my father's peers,
Mm-hmm.
my father's contemporaries, and they were suited all the time.
Yes, sir.
You didn't see him without a suit.
Mm-hmm.
My dad. I mean, I can probably count on both hands. From childhood up until adulthood, how many times I saw my dad outside of a suit.
Yeah.
Or at least slacks and a shirt.
Yeah.
Eugene Lawton. I won't name the others. Because they still some of them still around. It
Right.
was just
Right.
every time you saw them,
Yes, sir.
they had a suit on.
On the
you know.
beach, suit on.
Yeah, suit. You know what I mean? And lace ups. On the beach. So
Yes, sir.
some of it was that, and then kind of just coming into my own style. I mean, I didn't always wear suits. I started wearing suits when I got into ministry, and I
Hmm.
because I thought this is the presentation the minister needs to,
Yeah,
put forward at all
I
times.
always looked the part.
But
Hmm.
yeah, but things evolve. You change, kind of come into your own self, and so there's definitely that. But for the record, I've always been a stylish guy.
Indeed, you
Uh,
have. Indeed, I can testify. You have.
yeah, I've always been a stylish guy, but just styles just change.
Nice,
That's
man.
the best
Love it.
answer I can give you, man, on
Hey,
that one.
it's all right, man. It's all right. It's all right. I was hoping he was gonna say me, but it's all right. It's all good. It's all good.
And Smith, you did clown me enough. You and a
I
couple other
I
guys.
I had to do what needed to be done.
Y'all did. Y'all gave me a hard time about just always wearing suits, or at least the vest and the pants and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. So, that might have had a part to play in it too.
Hey, love it. Hey, whatever needs to be done. Hey, it works. It works, man.
It definitely worked. It worked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you look good, man. Y'all look at him, man. He look good, man. He look good. He look good, man. Love it, man. Before we go, um, you talk about just the namesake of this podcast, obviously Manpower Ministry. And so preferably those watching um, have got an opportunity to get to know more about you professionally, a little bit more into your life a little bit. Um, but there may be somebody watching who's a fellow minister in our fraternity. Someone, maybe some church members from the Crest or just around, in our brotherhood. Maybe somebody who's unchurched. Maybe somebody saying, okay, hey, I'm not really into the church thing, but I kind of like this medium. Um, this is really about a number of things, not only increasing our relationship as fellow ministers, but it's also about just strengthening the relationship between minister and member, pastor and people. And people
Yeah.
can encompass anybody. And so I always try to, ask, like, hey, from your perspective and your paradigm, you know, what's some words you would give to lastly just to encourage us on just strengthening there? Because typically when we talk about our humanity, it's always comes with a negative connotation, and so we want to give more of a positive light on just our because we are people,
Yeah.
believe it or not,
Yeah.
So, what would you say just to kind of encourage that?
Well, I would say there's several things I could say. I probably shouldn't say it all on this podcast, but uh, one thing I would say is that at the end of the day, you are in fact entitled to the same grace that you treat others with.
Yeah.
You know, I think so. Oftentimes, as church leaders and ministers, pastors, if you will, we really do hold ourselves to a standard that's not healthy.
Hmm.
Now, that's not to say that as leaders we're not held to a higher standard.
Right.
I definitely believe that, and I'm not discounting that. But we do have to give ourselves space and leeway to be human.
Yeah.
You know, and so I would lead with that. Give yourself, because we can be our own worst critics.
Surely.
You
Yeah.
know, and I'm sorry, there isn't as hard as I'm talking to church leaders, preachers
Hmm.
especially. The hardest church, the most difficult church member, the most critical church member is not more critical than you are of yourself.
Hmm. Yeah.
We are our own worst critics. And sometimes as a result of that, we place unhealthy expectations and pressure on ourselves.
Hmm.
So again, I would say, man, give yourself, extend to yourself the grace that you extend to others, even if they
That's
don't
good.
extend it to
That's
you.
good.
You'll go crazy. You'll burn out. You'll lose your grip, and if you don't learn to extend grace to yourself. Um, I would also just encourage guys that listen. At the end of the day, you have to live with your own decisions.
Hmm.
You know, so at the end of the day, it's a matter of doing what you know and what you believe is right for you, and what is right for your family if you have one. But above all, what pleases the Lord. You
Yeah.
know, man. At the end of the day, you got to be able to look at yourself.
Hmm.
You know, and know that you've done the right thing. For some, I would say, don't take yourself so seriously. I look
Mm-hmm.
at some of us, man, and we just take ourselves way too
Indeed.
seriously.
Indeed.
Lighten up,
Laugh a
man.
little bit.
I
It's all
want to
right.
tell
You gotta laugh a little
somebody,
bit.
dude, lighten up.
Yeah.
It's not that serious. And then, finally, and I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but
You definitely are.
operate with some integrity.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, that's all you got.
Yeah.
What really matters at the end of the day is what the kind of decisions you make when people are not watching.
Mm-hmm.
You
That's good.
know, and so I'd say that.
Nice. Nice.
Uh, and if you have people in your life that genuinely love you, value those people.
Good.
In ministry, you come across a lot of people that they feign love, they feign commitment, they feign
Mm-hmm.
adoration, but a lot of times that's because you know um, they believe that there's something that you can do for them.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, so when you have people that genuinely love you and care for you, cherish those relationships because those are the relationships that last, and those are the relationships that carry you through during those hard times.
That's good.
I don't know if that
Definitely.
answers your question or
Yeah.
not, but
Definitely did, man. Definitely did. That's why I
yeah,
say take it wherever you want to, wherever you want to.
yeah.
Man, look, we definitely appreciate you, man. Lastly, before we go, as we mentioned, we're in a social world. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Tell us before we go, how can we find you? How can we find the church on social media?
Yeah, so real easy on Facebook, Cedar Crest, the Church of Christ. On YouTube, same thing. We're working on revamping our website now,
Mm-hmm.
so that you'll be seeing that soon. You can contact me, Jonathan W. Morrison, if you want to holler at me. But Cedar Crest Church of Christ on Facebook and YouTube, those are the easiest ways to get to us.
Nice. Love it.
On
Love it.
social
Love it.
media.
Yeah. So if you are in the Dallas area, hey, get to the Crest. You'll have an awesome experience. Minister
Yeah.
Pastor Morrison, we appreciate you, brother, for getting out of your norm, getting out of your comfort zone, and coming and blessing us, man. I know everybody's going to appreciate this.
For sure. Appreciate you, Smith. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Definitely, definitely. That concludes it here. Again, if this has blessed you in any way, don't be afraid to like it. Don't be afraid to share it. Let somebody know about the good things that's going on right now. Again, if this is your first time, glad to have you tonight. We do this every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So again, until next week, God bless you. We'll see you then. Peace.
All right. Later.
Appreciate you, bro.
Yes, sir.